Cade Mila Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Tarot, and it's time for our Saturday book. This is a continuation of last Saturday, parts 1 and 2 we did last Saturday, and we're going to complete the book today. The wonderful book, Keepers of the Garden by Dolores Cannon. I'm not going to say too much. I'm just going to get into the book. If you need to catch up, certainly, you're welcome to go back and look at videos 1 and 2 from last week. So this is, I have to do this for recording purposes. So this is video number 3. And we're starting chapter 15 called The Dinosaurs. So the next few chapters are from weekly sessions that Dolores did. And just for the purposes of YouTube, any content here is the transcription of hypnosis sessions told to Dolores Cannon, and I'm just telling you what she says from the book. Okay. So, life on our planet, she was told, went from a cell to an amoeba, to multiple cells, to organisms, and to higher orders. Yes, they did. They evolved. However, they were guided along the way to assure that the eventual human form would be what they wanted by encouraging the survival of those organisms that were best suited. And she was told there is no missing link, that there were sudden mutations, evolutionary leaps. Dinosaurs evolved, but they were inappropriate. I imagine they were just too big for their food sources and territory. So the reality was manifested that assured their destruction. And what that means is there was a tilt of the axis. The seasons changed, food sources changed, weather changed. Some adapted, most did not. She was told Earth is a restless old woman who turns and frets. So I've been outside in the garden. I'm still hot and my eyes are sweating. This is really sad. Okay, let me continue. That a natural process occurs. It happens over and over and over. And now, because they often negatively affect the human condition, they're called cataclysmic or cataclysms. There was no one big gigantic event. There wasn't like Noah's flood and that was it. No, this was a continuing cycle of events, a slow, gradual process that hypes up and ramps up until there's a time of a shift, and then there's an instantaneous change. Let me mark this. The adjustment to the sudden change, it's like her description reminds me of how they describe the pressure building on a fault line. And it builds and builds and builds, and sometimes there are small quakes, but it finally becomes unbearable pressure, and there's a sudden release of the pressure, and that's kind of the impression that I'm getting. So this adjustment's going to happen in an amount of minutes, and it's just a natural evolutionary process. Earth's magnetic poles will align themselves to a different star, different stars in the heaven. And some far off stars are really powerful and really influence us. So Earth right now is preparing itself. Now remember, this book was written, I don't want to dig through my notes again. This book was written in 1993, but it was collated from sessions that happened starting in the early 80s. So it's a long time ago to be coming up with predictions of things that we now see unfolding. So the Earth is preparing itself to align to another point of origin, And therefore, there's what she called a ring of fire awakening. I think we know what that means. So this is a natural process if it's allowed to occur naturally. The poles are today 30 degrees different than they were 40 years ago. And one of the problems with nuclear weapons is they would speed the tilt of the axis. If this is allowed to occur naturally, we can adapt and prepare. The problem is we've interfered with nature. And she asked when. I'm sure that's what everybody wants to know. And she was told it's up to Earth and the Father in heaven. God. So, when dinosaurs were killed, the really, really big ones died off. And that, that makes sense. Some smaller ones were able to hide and adapt. And there were some primitive versions of humans that also did. But they had souls by this point. They weren't that early sort of animal spirit that she talked about in the other part of the book. They did exist at the same time as the dinosaurs, but they weren't us. They were something different, but they did have souls. And she says, now this is what she says, and I have to be so careful with YouTube, and I apologize for that. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells sometimes. This is coming from the book. This is what Dolores Cannon was told. This is not an idea that she necessarily is promulgating or was promulgating, and it's not my opinion. This is what I read in this book that I'm synopsizing. So she says that bones have been found with dinosaur bones, but it has not been accepted that really has happened by a mainstream science because it's considered a really radical viewpoint. That's what she was told. She said that she was told that which is considered the truth is sacred and not to be changed, but there's much resistance. People want to fit it into their narrative. There's some truth to ETs doing genetic breeding to improve genetic information of humans and to prevent stagnation at the Neanderthal level. And our modern brain would not have evolved the way it has without help. You think if they were going to help, they would have done a better job. The quote, make man in my image, is true. The ETs copied the look that exists around universes of many different humanoid races. Earth is not the only place in the universe where there are humanoids that look like us, she was told. So there were some that had the genetics for being extremely tall. There was earthly interbreeding with ETs to improve physical evolution. It was intentional to improve our DNA and to increase our brain capacity. The Bible, she was told, intentionally tailored stories to suit the people of the time. We're talking a more unsophisticated human, and the stories were put into a format with symbolism that meant something to them and was easy to digest, I guess. So chapter 14 is called The Interbreeding. In their next session, Phil sees, he goes into his trance and he sees a row of giant crystals. And he knew to stay for a while beside them to draw on their energy. And he was told that the first interbreeding was done by artificial insemination. And it started with a few, and it was successful, and then it went on to many. When they felt like they had it going and it was going well, They just left a few monitors to observe and to protect for the experiment. And from primitive man's point of view, these monitors that were left behind were gods. They had technology that these humanoids could not understand. And the monitors encouraged this. This is kind of food for thought. They encouraged this perception of them as gods. Individuals like Osiris and Quetzalcoatl were enlightened humans from, and they were purveyors of energy. They came to bring energy. They were not ETs, although there were ETs. So there are enlightened beings who maybe from another dimension, maybe from another plane. If we remember the Hermetic philosophy that we did, there are all those different levels. Every dimension has all these different levels, and it's crazy. But that doesn't mean that they come from a physical 3D kind of another planet. Some ETs do, some ETs don't. It's complicated. So ETs lived among humans as monitors and to teach us, and were considered gods. And there were a few humans that were able to advance, and they were used as messengers or purveyors of the truth. They were able to take the information, take the energy. They just, some of us understand physics and some of us don't, kind of like that. And they were able to kind of act as intermediaries. And there were some from other planets, and there were some from other dimensions. Our reality is much different than mainstream would want us to believe. Many of the ones at the top that are running things, they know this. Anyway, these entities came from other planes of existence to give us information and help, not just planets. And sometimes the ones we think that come from planets are really, that is an elevated energy being. There were some leaders from other realms, and some leaders today who are from other realms, and they wouldn't identify them for canon. It was necessary for them to come to give information, and they needed to be big shots to get the information out. They needed to have a prominent face. But this has happened in the past, and these beings, because they were so much more advanced, were revered as godlike or holy. And they came with a gradual the ability to give us gradual incremental bits of energy and information. It was a slow, steady ascent into consciousness raising. And it started with useful and practical things like foraging, hunting, building, and agriculture. And it always, there were a few who were fully aware of where their information was coming from, and humanoids who were fully aware of where these entities' information was coming from. And we as a whole, some of us, some other people, grew in understanding. They grew to understand the influence of the stars, for example, astrology. They knew, at that time, they knew about it better than we do now, and the influence that this plasma energy has on all of us. And energy coming down, she was told, energy coming down makes things occur, and they know it. So, and I know I'm going to get this question, so I'll just answer it right now. That does not negate free will. We have events put in our path. We have occurrences in the universe. Law of polarity, law of cause and effect. Things happen. And that's not a loss of free will. It's how we react, how we handle it. That's the free will. So people learned dentistry from them. They learned, how to fix a tooth and put a tooth back, how to pull a tooth. They learned how to use herbal treatments for pain and infection. They did open heart surgery. And as people devolved, because that cycle of, how we do, the open heart surgery actually became human sacrifice. They were capable of energy healing, channeling energy for healing. The pyramids in Mexico were built, she was told, much earlier than we think. And it was really late in their existence that they were used for sacrifice. That was not their purpose. At this point, the ETs were not allowed to interfere because of free will. They had to watch us screw everything up. They are also, she was told, not allowed to discuss it with her. I think that's so interesting. You notice I'm putting question marks here because I want to return to these ideas later, and I'll tell you why when we get to the end, maybe. Stick around. So, a lot of what we were given, the information we were given to do things, agriculture, etc., were given as gifts, and they can't morally, according to the laws of nature, the ETs can't manipulate what we do with the gifts or take them back. That's one of the rules. They don't have any control over how gifts are used. Society has to create its own destiny. Like I said, the situations are put in our path, and it's what we do about it that's free will. And we have to do that. That's our lesson. We got agriculture from the ETs, proper nutrition. We got equipment that we learned how to use, depending on environment. Dietary laws are derived from the nutritional ideas and ideas of food safety and storage that came a long time ago. They just the details got lost in translation. They weren't originally religious laws. They were nutritional laws. So she asked, what about the Mayans? And the answer is, well, they didn't die out. Everybody thinks, well, the Mayans disappeared. What happened to them? They must have died out suddenly. There must have been a disease or something. And that's not true. According to what she was told, they were transported off planet. They knew that the Spanish were coming. They knew what was going to happen. They were very highly spiritually evolved and had psychic abilities, and they knew what was going to happen, and they felt like they didn't need to learn that lesson. And so an arrangement was made, and they all, as one group, transcended. Today, the ETs will not do that kind of thing anymore, that kind of physical evolution of a large group, an intervention of a large group. But they do get involved in channeling and mental psychic stuff. For example, and I just heard a scientist talking about this morning, and I think I might cover his book because it's just fascinating. And he was saying, lots of scientists say that they got their major breakthroughs, their inventions, from their imagination, came in their sleep, they dreamt about it, or it just was an inspiration. Inspiration is a word that comes from the Latin. It means to breathe in. I love that. Okay, so the ideas are sent as energy to this planet. And so more than one person is gonna, this is so funny. I'm reading my own mind. It's remarkable. I have in my notes here, more than one person may get the idea. So that's what happened with identifying HIV, just for example. And then underneath it I have inspired. So this helps in our consciousness, and we do get help in our consciousness from the same ETs who physically helped us in the past. So, chapter 17, an area for the dignitaries. So Phil goes into another trance. And I just wanted to mention, I should mention that she talks sometimes about the process of going into it and some of the description I skip. I talk about just enough to give you a sense of what's going on, or we'd be here all day. So he goes into this trance and he finds himself in an area which is obviously for dignitaries, a staging area for visitors from other planets. It's like, where they walk down the red carpet from the helicopter. So he sees a fourth dimensional symbol of unity, and he can't draw it because it's in 4 dimensions, but it represents a vibration, a level of vibration. And this is obviously an area for pomp and circumstance. And he tells her that where the planet is that he's on in this regression, because it's not Earth, he describes that it's like the Milky Way. It's in the Milky Way. And he tells her there's a federation of trust and support amongst entities from a variety of different places. They have evolved far. I'm sorry, I have to decipher my handwriting. They've evolved far beyond violence. That's a thing of the past. That's a very earthy kind of thing. They do commerce and trade. They share science. They work together in all areas. So there are other planets, and they don't describe some of the arrangements that this confederacy has. They don't have a profit motive. They're into sharing. They don't seek personal gain. They're not into competition. No soccer parents yelling, "Be aggressive" at 9:00 on a Saturday morning. They don't have a defense industry. They don't need it. They don't even understand the concept of personal success. Well, neither do I. They work to benefit all of themselves, and they think of others as they think of themselves. They regard themselves as connected, all of a group. And Earth is not as far from getting there as we might think. It's easy to get really concerned, but they said, we're right on the edge there. And many of these entities are working for it with people, and the people that they have, people who have volunteered, entities who have come in, and we're going to get to all of that eventually, but they, some of them don't even have to do anything remarkable. It could be your next door neighbor. It's the existence of their energy raises the vibration on the planet, and sometimes they are role models. It just sort of depends on the job they volunteered to do. And they're not aware of it. It's a subconscious thing. And she was told, again, that Americans are too caught up in competition for success. She's told that there are other planets with even worse issues with these concepts that I just listed, personal gain, competition, violence, defense, all that. Worse off than Earth. We're actually not the worst. That's horrifying. It's not unheard of for a planet to 100% self-destruct, and the souls simply have to move on. Your soul never dies, so don't worry about it. Your soul never dies. You're in a body for a while. It's a tool, a vehicle, and it's not you. This is very difficult for humans. It's hard for me. I'm imagining it's hard for a lot of people to wrap your head around the notion. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to really internalize it. Anyway, planets evolve because the physicality is a reflection of the spirit. So now that doesn't mean that all beautiful people are good spirits. That's not quite right. Or that really ugly people or handicapped people are somehow spiritually not okay. That's not what they mean. We're talking in general the human form. The generic human form is a reflection of the vibratory level of the spirit on this planet. At least I hope that's how I understood it anyway. I hope that's right. So chapter 18, other types of beings. This is a new session with Phil again, and he finds himself standing at the spires that we've talked about before. At least I think we've talked about it before, the 3 spires. I have read at this point, I have several Dolores Cannon books to cover. I'm trying to space them out and not just overdo it all at one time. And I know everybody loves them, but I do have other books, and I do want to keep us aware of the world. And I'm trying to dive into the Dolores Cannon books that help us. So we did that plasma book. A lot of her books we've done recently go hand in hand with that. So he's at these spires, and he sees a bright white light. He sees the spires are rearranged, and he has a new interpretation for them. He says there are many humanoid forms in our part of the universe. More are similar to us than are dissimilar to us. Cannon asks for a description of some of these 3D planets. She's curious. And she's told there are over 10,000 types in our area with carbon-based life and senses. But many of them have senses beyond what we have. So they have the 5 senses, but they have a whole bunch more. This, like being able to see 360, for example. They take her in words, and I'm not going to get into this because it's really difficult to synopsize some of these descriptions, but they take her in words to a far star, and they tell her it's only far because our technology is limited. When they get to the star, it's a medium size. It's bigger than ours, she's told, but it's, not giant. The fifth planet from the sun, there's another planet that we don't know about, and it's pale green, and it radiates kind of a pale green light. It's inhabited. We would only see them as shadows. We would go there and we would not see beings because they're shadows. It's about vibration and the limits of our physiology. So, and if our vibration changed, our physiology would change. We would only see them as shadows. Our senses cannot pick up their vibrations. We can't see them. They give off UV light because of the soul energy inside of them. For example, if you touched them, they would only feel pressure, not hot and cold. It's one of the little differences. They don't communicate. We don't communicate with them. They don't communicate with us because our perceptions have no common denominators. They can't even go there because we're so pathetic to them. And it's not a judgment. It's just, it's like trying to teach the dog algebra. Although my dog's getting pretty good at binomials. Just kidding. So, they're telepathic. They could express to us love and awareness. We would feel that. They're highly intelligent. They're developed. They're industrial. They're very attuned telepathically. You would see only what looked like freestanding pipes and wires. You wouldn't even see buildings. This is all about vibration. Humans just can't perceive anything there. And we look like rocks to them because we have very low density vibration. Many planets have humanoid bodies, entities with humanoid bodies, because of the environment is conducive to it. Cannon asks, talk about the creatures with human-type spirits and intellect, but the ones that are not humanoid. And the answer is there are many types, and they're so advanced, they derive sustenance from astral energy. Their energy is so high, it's almost impossible to describe them. They're not really... we would be judgmental is the other thing. We have grown accustomed to eating food, but she's told, now this is what she's told, I'm not giving this as advice, I'm repeating the synopsis of a book. She is told that we could live without food, but we've gotten used to eating, and that we could survive on energy, that it would be a mental process, and most of us have made no attempt. And there are stories about yogis who don't eat. I don't know. I'd be kind of sad, but it is possible. It's, I'm not very highly evolved. And there's a type, he said, for example, that live like a colony of bees. Page 188. I can't see here. What have we got? Oh, I'd forgotten this. This is a picture of one of these types of beings that are very evolved spiritually. But look what they look like. What is that? Yeah, that's why they don't really go into a lot of detail, because we just can't handle it. So they're 3 feet tall, they're onion-shaped and gray, they have 7 tentacles, they're telepathic, they don't use eyeballs, they have no vision. They use their tentacles, put them into the ground, and they have pores in their tentacles, and they get nutrition from the ground. This planet they're from has very low gravity, and they float around and push themselves around with their tentacles. They use asexual division. They live without structures because they're in tune with their environment. They don't need protection. They don't need shelter. They have total communication with every individual in their group. It's all a shared existence, because they don't believe in ownership. They don't have any predators, but they do die off to maintain a balance of population according to natural law. They're not technological. They're hugely mentally developed. They have 3 suns with a high amount of radiation, and when it gets too much and they decide, okay, it's time to cull the population, I guess, it's a big celebration. The ones that decide that they've had enough and they're so spiritually evolved, there's a celebration that they have moved on. It's really interesting. Chapter 19, the aliens are here. This is the name of the chapter. I'm not giving advice. So there are aliens coming to survey us, to study us, to observe us, and some are here permanently. There are several places with colonies of ETs living together here on the planet that are secret and hidden, and we're not going to get to find out about them today, sorry. They often visit smaller cities at night, and only those that are tuned into them and that level of existence can see them. So if you've seen something, that means you're getting, elevated. Many see ETs and stay silent. I think I've mentioned before, my husband and I saw a UFO. 100% it was a UFO. It was defying the conventional laws of physics. And, we've told a few people, and majority of people just kind of roll their eyes and, here's Helen losing her mind again. I'm used to it now. Used to that kind of reception. But I could see where if you've had an extensive interaction with them, you would think twice before you'd let that be well known. People are really resistant, very resistant. So our atmospheres are similar enough that some of these ETs can adjust and they stay. Their bodies are 3-dimensional, and we have other dimensional visitors as well. The Earth is not hollow. It has a solid core with a floating mantle. This is according to them. And entire civilizations of ETs live inside the Earth, beneath the surface. Preparations are being made for them to emerge. We're not ready yet. There's a disagreement about the timing. They're highly developed. They're gentle. They would protect themselves, and, goes without saying, we'd attack them. So violence is likely, and so there's a lot of debate about how to make themselves known. They look very different. They're tall, thin, and pale. Humans have gone beneath the earth accidentally and found tunnels and accidentally seen ETs and talk about it when they come back, and they're ridiculed when they return. And I always return to the legend of Rip Van Winkle. Go back and read that story in the context of this book. Tell me what you think in the comments. The volumes and volumes of information have been written about them. And those are keepers of the truth, is what she was told. Those who read and seek out information are seekers. So, hello, seekers. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be open-minded about this stuff. There are those who are awake and really aware of what's going on and helping others to prepare. And like I said, there are different levels of help being given. Mere proximity to somebody with the energy to raise vibrations will have a positive effect. You might not know it. You might think, oh, I really like that person, to hang out with them. And they don't do anything remarkable, and they don't know they're remarkable. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. And there are those who lead such lives of light, shining examples of how we should be, that they stand out. And then there are the ones who really get actively involved. There are survivors of Atlantis, and they stuck around to refine their intellect to a higher degree and see what they could do to help the people who blew up the planet. Atlanteans are partly beneath the Gulf of Mexico and partly beneath the Antarctic Circle, and it was a culture, not one spot. And it's the one at in Antarctica is interdimensional. And I have to ask myself, let me write this down. Is this why all the astronauts were going there recently, if you remember? There are, these creatures, these entities are ready to help after the changes of the shift, and some governments are aware of that, and I don't know. There are humans who are keepers of the truth, like the Essenes, and they work with the ETs. They're slowly letting experiencer stories out. Now, this was written decades ago. They're letting experiencer stories out to prepare us gradually to try to avoid panic. Good luck. People are tested chemically, biologically tested to monitor environmental changes. And this is them trying to explain to Dolores Cannon in the 80s about people who are abducted and have all these memories of experiments being done on them. It's to monitor the pollution on the planet, genetic changes, biochemical changes. They told her that cancer is the body saying, I cannot take this stuff. If you see an ET, it's intentional that you should see it. It's done on purpose to desensitize the human race person by person, and they don't mean any harm. They come in love and service, and there are many of them in gigantic ships around our planet, up high. We just don't see them. And it's easy for them to hide because they're interdimensional often. They're working on the ground to gradually bring about belief to avoid panic. The time will come when everyone will know. Should we choose to blow ourselves up, it would be our choice, and then that would be our destiny. And don't obsess about that. It's like, que sera, sera. Should the human race choose to do so, then that is the human destiny. There will be given, this is the voice of the aliens or the voice of whoever Phil is channeling. There will be given every opportunity for this not to occur, however. The energies of your planet are affected by the thoughts that you feed into it. The energy of your planet is the thoughts that you feed into it. And so those negative, destructive thought patterns which have been fed into the energy of your planet are being challenged by energies being fed into your planet of a more more constructive nature. The outcome could be that the more dominant energy will be the higher form. She asks what's the source of the positive, and she's told those working in the energies, such as your group, who meditate and feed this positive energy into the energy bank, are the source, as well as those working from the spirit plane. She says then it will be determined at that time which side will win out, so to speak, and she's told that's accurate. The decision point has not been reached, therefore the energies could change between this chronological time point and that chronological time point. Even a very slight variance in the energies could cause a dramatic difference in the ultimate outcome of that decision. And she says, have other planets gone through this process of development? And she's told that's accurate. Then she asks, how will we know which way it's going to go? And he goes on to say, well, there are beings who are there who have contingency plans. And I think the important thing to remember is that whatever happens, it's about physical reality and spiritual evolution. And the physical reality might end, but the spiritual doesn't. And no sense in tying yourself in knots about it. I'm going to write down a little note to myself here. It'll all become clear. So contingency plans are being made, and you can change your personal destiny, but not world destiny. That's the thing put in front of us, and then we decide with our free will what we're going to do with our souls. Once it's set, destiny is set, and it's up to us to try to direct that in a good way. Free will supersedes everything. There is not a universal consciousness on the earth yet. Now, this is in the 80s, 90s, I wonder. Lessons beyond love and understanding are not within our comprehension. So when we're ready, we will be taught about ourselves and politics and all that stuff, and it will not be the old politics, the same old way. That will be gone. Thank God. There'll be help to set up a world government. Uh-oh. Don't tell Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the old way is proven its fallibility. We see it in action every day, and resistance to the new way will be from those who are just not ready. The old ways will be torn down, and the slate will be wiped clean. Just the advice is be aware and be alert. And that's what I try to do here. Keep us aware. Keep us alert. The urge is to look away. Being aware and being alert is not feeding the negative. It's a fine line between the two. So the easier it is to detach from the old ways, and I think that's rejection of fascism, for example, or rejection of patriarchy. And the easier it is to walk into the light with an open mind, the easier it will be to embrace the new. Those who are the least rigid will have the easier time. And we're seeing that unfold. I think what's happening with the Republican Party, there you go. That's exactly what she's talking about. But change is our destiny. It's going to happen no matter how many people resist it. This will have to be an evolution, not a revolution. And the evolution has been slow, and it continues. And ETs are using telepathy to tell leaders no nukes. They're being they need to tune into Putin a little better. But, and this is really encouraging, humans can do this too. We can use our abilities, our telepathic abilities, which everybody has. And all you have to do is focus on it. So let's all tell old Vladimir to put his big bombs away. So don't force this. If someone is not ready, you can tell people about this. You can give them this book. But if they're not ready, don't try to change their beliefs. They just aren't ready. I've mentioned many times, these books have been on my radar for at least probably 2 decades. Dolores Cannon's name has popped up over and over and over. And I just didn't pursue it. I can't explain it. And then one day, I was like, oh yeah, I really need to read those. And I think that's what they're talking about. That's the process they're talking about. When you're ready to get the information, there it is. So my suggestion would be, tell everybody you know to subscribe to my channel and watch our Saturday books. If you're ready, you'll understand what's going on, or you'll start to understand it, you'll contemplate it, and it'll start to make more sense. Just don't force it on people. People will seek it out when they're ready. I totally believe that. There's a real need to increase human consciousness, to raise human consciousness. She was told there's much carelessness and thoughtlessness in the world between one man and another. Well, usually men, but between one human being and another. And this is the most important thing that we all really need to be aware of. And we should show the first step to others, which is compassion and love. And eventually, they will follow. So, we need to be good examples. And that's the end of that chapter. And I think I'm going to end this video here, the end of number 3. And we'll start number 4 on a new video. But first, I want to make an announcement, and I hope I'm not jinxing it. You know how things are between technology, schedules, and the unpredictability of human life. Nothing is ever set in stone. But I have big news. This Tuesday, I am going to be having a conversation with Dolores Cannon's daughter, Julia. So if you have questions, now is the time. Send me your questions. And that's why I've been putting things, question marks here in my narrative of the book. I'm going to go back because I have some ideas I'm really eager to ask her about. And I hope that you guys will come up with some great questions for me so I don't look real stupid. So very excited. She's quite generous to do this because she just got back from being on some kind of a speaking tour. We'll find out. And it sounds to me like her time is just in crazy demand. Well, you can imagine. So a little link to Dolores Cannon. Very excited about this. So I'll be back with the next video, and thank you very much for watching. Slánga foiil, slánja.